sure that we're on Facebook. Welcome to Storypower TV. I am your host, Loren Norris, and I am so glad that you're here with me today. We're going to have a great conversation about what it means to be a Christian in the marketplace and busy about the business of the kingdom and what that means. What does it mean as a parent? What does it mean as a citizen? What does it mean as someone who's just getting involved in what's going on in the world around you? And for a lot of people, that's a challenge. They say things like, well, you know, religion and politics should be separate. Okay. Show me one political system that has no religion in it. Go ahead. Oh, wait. Show me one religious system that has no politics in it. From the smallest teeny little churches and home groups up to the biggest mega churches. They are abundant in politics, I promise you. And if you understand what I mean by that, then you understand that your role as a well-behaved, well-informed, well-educated citizen of either the kingdom or the community, you got a role in this. You got something you should be doing. And it may not be comfortable, and it may cause you to do things that are not in your own personal best interest. And that's what we're going to talk about in this episode of Storypower TV. And I want you to help me welcome to the studio a mother of 9, a citizen advocate, a patriot, and some people's book a loudmouth, but someone who's devoted to and dedicated to living out what she says she believes. Help me welcome Monica Brown.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Appreciate you being here. Now, you've made a conscious decision to involve yourself in community politics in a lot of different ways.
Yes.
And as a mother of 9, that is a time-consuming process,
Right.
both being a mother of 9 and being involved in what's going on around you. And whether we agree on everything or we don't is not as relevant as why do you do what you do? But before that, everybody on Storypower TV has to answer one question.
Okay.
Who is Jesus to you?
Okay, Jesus is someone I committed my life to back when I was 15 years old. Before that, I had gone to the altar many times, regretting my weakness and seemed like I was always needing more. And then I just basically drew a line in the sand at 15 and said, I'm devoting the rest of my life to you and I'm not going to play games. And I did the same thing with relationships, like with young men. I'm like, I'm not going to play games. And shortly thereafter, I met my husband. But Jesus, to me, he's revealed in the Word. So I like to know what the Word says so I don't dream up things about him that aren't true. So I like to really be well-versed in that. And he came and he died and he left the Holy Spirit so that I could be empowered and comforted. So 2 things, he would comfort me, but he would also lead me. And I really believe that's what he's done, and he's still doing that. And I want to use the word convicting me, but that is I do have conviction. And so when I see something that is, especially something that crosses a moral line or involves children, it definitely gets my attention. And then I have to decide, is this a place for me to say something, or what is my step? So Jesus is everything to me, and I want to be someone who gets that well done when I get there. I want to serve him all the days of my life, and I also want my children to know him very well by knowing his word, starting there.
So the follow-on question that is always the same as well, and
Okay.
that is, why should I care?
Why should you care? Well, I liken this to a story I was told one time about a man who was trying to prevent people from a car accident that was up the road. sometimes we come into your life and you don't care. You don't know. You have no idea what's around the corner. And I truly do believe we have a Creator, and we have Jesus Christ as His Son, and that He does say, whosoever will, and He wants every one of us to serve Him if we are willing and if we will say yes. And it will avert a lot of things for us if we listen. So I think you should care, because I think there's more than we realize. And if we pay attention, we'll notice there really is more out there, and there is a good and evil battle going on. And so choosing the side of good is a great decision. And the worst thing is, if you were wrong, what a good life. I believe the Christian life is the best life you could possibly live, with the best values. So, you know, that's how I feel about it.
Okay. So you talk about warning people of an oncoming car accident. I know this morning I made a trip to the house and back between meetings, and I passed a black Chevy pickup coming at me, flashing his headlights. Flashing his headlights. And when I came around the corner, there was a wrecker pulling a car out of the ditch, and police cars everywhere, and traffic stopped both ways.
Right.
And I thought, you know, if I didn't notice that, would I have slowed down on that blind curve, or would I have been part of that accident on that blind curve?
And you might have been, possibly, you may not have today, but what if you're irritated that this person tried to get your attention, or they swerve at you, or they do something dramatic that gets your attention, but then once you realize it saved you from what was up the road, then your heart's full of gratitude. So that's kind of, I think, what happens sometimes in the Christian walk, is that people sometimes feel that way. They don't like what you're saying, they don't like what you're doing, and then if they understand the other side of the story, often they realize with gratitude that what has been prevented for them, and then what has been gifted to them. Yeah.
So you're a mother of 9. How old?
How old am
Children.
I? Okay.
How old are your children?
Okay.
I knew better than to ask one. How old is she?
Actually, it doesn't matter. I always tell my kids, hey, I'm halfway there. I'm halfway to my Maker, and I'm very happy about that. And so 31, I believe, is the oldest, maybe 32 at this point, and then it goes down to 24. And then it goes down to 3 adopted that are 20, 19, and 19. And so then it goes down to 17 and 15 and then 12 and 7. So my youngest is 7.
And how many of those are natural born to you?
6 natural born and 3 adopted.
And how did you come about the 3 that are adopted?
So way back, I had some health issues when I was in my teens, and my doctor said, you may have a hard time having babies. And when I went to my counselor at school and they helped me determine my career path, we came down to several things, but one of them was to become a social worker. So I studied that, and I was deciding between like pediatrician or counselor kind of type person. And I thought, oh, you know, I really don't want to fix bones. I want to help hearts and minds. Back then, that was what I wanted. And nutrition was another one that was, dietitian was on the list too. But anyway, I pursued adoption. I became a master's degree social worker, and I began to place children, special needs children for adoption, and always thought that one day I might adopt as well. So before my husband and I ever married, we talked about the potential of adopting. And when I was very small, 3rd grade, it's written down that I desire to have a big family. And people laughed at me, and it had to be God that put that in my heart, because not everybody wants that. And then when you get it, you know, you have to live it.
A few decades ago, that was a really weird, you know, wish to have a
right.
large family.
Even now, there's people who don't wish for the life I have, but I feel I have a very rich, full life, and I wouldn't change it. Even though there's been parts that have been extremely hard, so I wouldn't change it. I'm glad.
And so, how many of your kids are still living the life that you modeled for them?
So out of 9, my oldest is not, and I'm praying for him constantly. Love him very much, and he's very opposed to myself and my husband and our values as a family right now. But the story's not over. And the second son is honoring to us and our values that we raised him in. The next one is all the rest actually are still on track for what you might call a God, country, you know, red, white, and blue, conservative value direction. Now their life will tell, and they will be able to choose, right? Some are still in the house, so there's a few still that live at home. But one of my sons is 20, and he just gave me a recommendation or an endorsement last night that was so precious of who he sees me as, and his values are lining right up, which I appreciate. It's so good. It's so good. You know.
It's refreshing.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
So I've only known you, well, I've only been in Granbury for a couple of years, so less than that.
Right.
And never had any super deep conversations, so today's kind of our chance to dive into that and figure out who you are. But part of the reason that we're having this conversation is because we've crossed paths in places where people rise up and say, okay, politically, I see things that are going on, and I generally I'm not a on the front line political person. I don't think that's my calling at this point.
Right.
If God changes that, then I'm fine with that. But my primary role is helping people to clearly see the vision and communicate the vision that they've been assigned to. And so I've worked with a lot of politicians all over the map and helped people to define their message and identify the stories that they've lived through that help other people to see those messages more clearly.
Okay.
And so as we've crossed paths, it's been in that arena.
Right.
Watching other people in the political sphere around you and seeing the core values that you express and the things that you say out loud. And so when you said you were running for office, I thought, well, that'd be an interesting thing to talk about, because it's not every day that someone goes from being a mother of 9 to running for office.
Right.
For a lot of people being involved in politics, recently had Terry Hall on the show. Terry's not necessarily involved in politics, but what she does definitely impacts the political realm. And so that's an interesting aspect. And she's a homeschool mom as well, if I remember right. So there's a lot of similarities in that aspect, but she's not choosing to be on the forefront of politics in the way that you're choosing to do that.
Right.
So what motivates you to step out there, especially when you see all of the things that go on in politics? There's a lot of filthiness in politics, a lot of dirt, a lot of vitriol and hatred.
Yes, far more than I recognized or realized. I've watched it happen to people. I've seen people lose jobs, just a lot of things like that. But I've always been interested in politics, in anything that supports our Constitution, that goes back to early American history, supporting freedom, the First Amendment rights. All that's been very important to me. I probably would have been involved sooner, except that I did have so many children and small ones too, also running a business. So I did vote. And when I came to Granbury, I came to take over a homeschool co-op, and it was like volunteer work on steroids, is what I tell people, like nothing I had ever done before. I always volunteered, but this one was like a daily regular thing, and very, very enriching, encouraging, and what a wonderful experience. I loved it. But in that process, I ended up getting involved with the school district here, and we were involved in a robotic tournament. We were offering for independent school districts to come to our gymnasium and perform and compete, and we did that many times. And then we in turn began to go to independent school districts in different places in the state, including Granbury, to have our students compete too. And so it was very exciting for us and very fun, but part of my role was to be a volunteer. When my students showed up to compete, I would volunteer at each tournament. So in Granbury, they kept asking me to, since I'm a foodie and I like healthy food and everything, they said, well, you make breakfast, lunch, and snack for everybody. I said, sure, I'll do that. That'll be my contribution. And so they put me in the library every single time, which I thought was odd. It just always struck me as odd. But anyway, that brought me into a thing that was going on that I had no idea of, because I really wasn't in that world. But there had been released from our state legislature a large list of books, and each administrator of schools was asked to get these books vetted. So next thing I know, I've been asked by a trustee, would you be on the committee? And the first thing I said to my husband was like, I don't think so. I have so much going on. I don't need to do this. He goes, oh, I think you should. So it kind of started with my husband, because he's really laid back. He doesn't tell me what to do a lot, but when he does, it gets my attention. So I was like, well, okay, I'll say yes. But I thought she was going to nominate me and would immediately go, not this person. I thought they would vote or something, but they didn't. And then they chose to put 100 books back out of 133 that were very clearly, most of them explicit books, not age appropriate, certainly not academic books, back in the library. And I missed the first meeting because I already had a meeting scheduled, and then I said I'd be at the next one, and I didn't actually know where it was in time to even get there with the communication that we had going. So by the time I got there, they had placed my name in the paper after their second meeting saying that we had put 100 books back. I'm like, well, how do you do that? These books are 300 to 600 page books. How did you actually do that? And as it turns out, it was a very defining moment for me, very sad, because we had the lead of our newspaper here, who is also an attorney. We had school officials there that had been given awards. We had teachers who had been given awards for their teaching, which I'm sure they did do a good job teaching, but they were on the committee, and they would just vote and smile and put each book back. So when I got to the third meeting, that's when I attended, it just became a big dilemma for me. I stood up, I sat down, I stood up, I sat down. I was like, I have to go. I don't even think I can do this. And sitting right next to me was Karen Lowry, who I had never met before. I had no idea that she had the same thoughts I was having. Eventually, she became a school board trustee here in Granbury. She ran for office over that situation. But before I was even involved, there was a man who used to be a trustee here named Chris Tackett. He is a big loud mouth. You mentioned me being a mouth. He's a much bigger mouth than me, him and his wife. And they would come to school board meetings before I ever got involved and claim that this whole group was fighting against specifically marginalized communities like LGBTQ. And that flat out is not true. So that's what he did, and it created a lot of trouble. Nationally, it put Granbury in the spotlight and things like that. Anyway, long story short, I got with the superintendent and I said, wait a minute, y'all said in the paper this was me, the paper said it, and I did not approve it, and the parents need to know the truth, and these are very explicit books, and they don't belong in the school system. So I documented as many as I could, and so did Karen. And we made it available so people could read for themselves, and we gave it to the trustees so they could see and they could make a decision. And that's where everything kind of went backwards, because they acted as though we gave them nothing. They denied the books were there in some cases. It just became a big mess, and every time I turned around, it seemed like there was something more happening that was basically a debacle and unjust, especially how they treated Karen. But at that same time, that's when the airplane was being flown too by lead administrators. So the lady who was over the libraries and her husband, they're the ones who flew in that airplane to take family vacations. He ended up leaving eventually. She's still here. And she's still saying we don't need parents involved or citizens involved in selecting materials for our libraries because we have professionals. And what I found is they have decades of people who have been present in this town, this wonderful town, that did not support community values. And how they kept doing it, I don't know. But anyway, that is what happened, and that's kind of why I'm here. It's a moral thing, and I just take it pretty much one day at a time. I'm praying, God, do you want me to do this or not do this? Help me to be led and not driven, because driven will make you crazy and tired and exhausted and you won't get anywhere. And it looks good if you're driven, but being led is so different. And I've watched him show me things and I'm like, okay, there's no way I should know this. I know it, so I feel responsible.
So leaving personalities out of it, what do you think motivates people to provide reading material that's not age appropriate?
What motivates people to provide material that is not age appropriate? I think, oh man, I think that has to just be something maybe they don't even realize they're being influenced by faulty ideas. But leading students, first of all, not to even read well in the first place is a very bad idea. And then to give them explicit materials, because what I have found is that people who get involved in that kind of thought, whether it be pornography or explicit books, things like that, I think, excuse me, my experience is that their brain is sort of like scrambled. Their logic is gone. So why would they do it? I'd like to believe, boy, I think they're listening to the wrong voice. I don't even know why they would do that, but it is being done, and it's been done all over our nation. It wasn't just here.
You think it's ignorance or apathy? Or
Boy,
intention?
Intention. In Granbury High School, when I was in their library serving food, after I finished serving food and had hours and hours to hang around, because I was there from 6 a.m. in the morning until about 7 at night, there were lulls, and I would just, get up and walk around. The librarian had a poster behind her behind her chair, that had her name on it, and it was kind of like a cartoon of her, like maybe an emoji or something. And it was like what?
A caricature.
A caricature, thank you. And it was like, what is Mrs. Burns reading today? And she had a book called Brazen. Now, it's not the worst book at all, but it was a book about women who changed the world, and one of them was a transgender. Well, that's not a woman, I'm sorry. Now, if you want to say transgenders who changed the world, that would be a true statement. But her concept of being brazen, it was all over. She had a clear plexiglass that was around her desk that had books in it that were sexually explicit. She had bookshelves all over the library that had explicit authors, that had books with covers on them that would make you question what's in there. One of them was called Gone, a student, a teacher, a student crossing the line. And it was about a 17-year-old young man with his 30-something-year-old teacher. And it was absolutely explicit. I picked it up, I took pictures of it, and I shared it with them. They didn't remove it. Later,
So are these books that were on the list?
Some of them were not on the list. Like that one was not on the list. It was just on her shelf, but it wasn't on the shelf like in a hidden way. So for whatever reason, they thought they could do that. And I will say in her case, the reason I say it's on purpose is because that is exactly the kind of books that she authors. So she authors them. She's a writer. And hey, if you're a librarian, what kind of books are you going to pull into your library? Books that you are interested in. So this may have been her personal interest. But recently we had a band director here who is gone now, a female, who was inappropriate with a male student. She's gone now. She's lost her. She volunteered to let go of her certificate. So that's just an interesting situation, but that was the very book that was on the shelf. And people go, oh, it was never there. Yes, actually it was. And then the constable went in later, took pictures of the same book, and it was still there months later when he did his investigation. So yes, I think it was absolutely intentional in some cases. I do know one teacher who did wonderful work, has since left this district to go to a charter school and is doing very well there. She told me, I just quit taking my kids to the library. I couldn't take them. There were no resources there that were worthy. Like there was nothing to research. So as I was going through the middle school library, I thought, wow, it's just dark in here. It's surreal, it's paranormal, it's sci-fi crazy. And that's when I first ended up documenting what was in there. And one of the trustees said, well, would you just snap photos of what if anything bothers you? So, okay, sure. So I was walking around. Finally, I go, oh man, it's the whole library practically. And then where's Ben Franklin? I was looking for that section because I attract to that. Like you have a library I saw here that's true stories and historical things. And I'm like, okay, wait, where is this stuff? It's not here. And because I had learned a lot about homeschooling, I learned about living books and inspirational books and how you don't want to give your children something, and an old term is called twaddle, which means basically stupid books. You don't want to do that. Now you can have some stupid books. I'm not saying we can't, just like we can have some candy.
Yeah, but you don't educate from comic books.
You do
educate
not.
From encyclopedias.
And they absolutely have that stuff there. They have literal what they call graphic novels. Even the categories in the library are different now. There's chick lit. So if you can imagine what chick lit is, chick literature, it's super smut. And then they made a brand new category called what's it called? It's young adult. You can go to the library here in Granbury and look at the young adult section, and I think you'll be disappointed with what you see. So yes, I do think a fair amount of it is intentional. I think a librarian would like to say, well, I just get all these books in and they just come in and I just stick them on the shelf. I'm like, well, then you have too many books if you're doing that.
Okay, so your involvement in, I think the first project or the first environment that you and I met in was the True Texas Project.
Yes.
Does that ring a bell?
Yes.
And so your involvement in that, was that before or after this journey with the library?
Okay, so my involvement with True Texas Project goes way back. A representative came and knocked on my door when I lived in Bedford. And so at that time, very small children, so I would take my children and sit in the back and listen. And I got to know Julie McCarty, who leads that organization, and one of her, well, she has one daughter and I have 5. And so one of my girls and her daughter became good friends. So we did a few things together, and to this day we're very good friends. And then I moved out to Granbury. And she asked me if I would take over the volunteer director position. And again, I told my husband, well, he had a dream. He goes, we have got to be more active. And I said, well, Julie's asking me if I would take that position. He goes, okay, do that. Okay. But